regular meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order. And we start with a roll call.
All right, Manager Lowe. Manager Schmaltz.
Here.
Manager Baki. Manager Taves.
Here.
President Anderson.
Here.
Manager
Thank you.
Lopez here.
Oh, sorry.
Good, thank you.
Hey, Chris.
Hello.
All right, next item is setting of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions? Are there any subtractions? Okay. I need a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Manager
Yep.
Taves, you got that?
Mm-hmm.
Manager Lowe.
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye,
Madam President, managers,
yes.
we just want to take a few minutes to present.
Oops.
Sorry, that was my.
Most of the people couldn't hear that.
Okay.
Just us.
We had voices. All right. Are we ready to move on? Staff, yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Consent agenda. This item can be taken up all as one, and you can see that we have four meeting minutes to approve.
I put the wrong, November 21st on this slideshow, should be January 28th,
Just on the slideshow.
just on the slideshow.
Okay. All right, well, you can connect that or correct that later. So it is as it stands. Are there any items that anyone wants to address? Corrections, comments? No? Okay, a motion then to accept the consent agenda is in order.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you to Mr. Taves. Okay,
And I'll second that.
thank you, Manager Smalls.
All right, Manager Lowe.
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Next item is number 4, public open forum. And our rules are apparently that individuals have to be present to speak during the open forum. And seeing no one here, we can move on. Number 5, advisory committee updates and appointment.
I'm president managers of Aiden Reed here this evening to present the information on the CAC.
Thank you, Madam President, managers. Attached is the notes from our March 18th advisory committee meeting. The committee looked at the aquatic invasive species report and management plan for 2025. Then we discussed the ice ridge issue that we've been seeing around the district. And our next meeting will be April 15th. We'll have Randy Schumacher as chair. And I believe Manager Anderson has reached out about attending that. But if any managers are interested in future meetings, certainly let me know and we can get you on the schedule.
What date was that again? Adam?
Tuesday, April 15th.
Okay.
And if there are no other questions about the notes, I can give a brief introduction for Gary Kramlich, who is unable to attend today.
Yes, whatever you want to do, that's fine.
All right. Well, Gary had walked into the Watershed District office, I want to say either in January or late December, and basically approached staff and said, I'm new to the area and I'd love to help any way I can. So he had moved here from Washington, D.C., where he had a career at the Pentagon, a background in environmental science from undergraduate that he felt he had not used sufficiently and was interested in learning more. So we invited him to the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings. He's been attending for a few months now, and we'll be starting us with the citizen-assisted tributary monitoring once we get that program running up. But I can say that for the last couple months, he's been a great asset. I believe his background at the Pentagon is in systems and data analytics, and he's just been a great asset for the last couple months and asking good questions. And I'd be happy to have him join us on the committee in an official capacity.
And Gary Krimlich, is he the one?
Kramlich is the pronunciation, I believe.
Oh, okay, all right, very good. Well, is there a motion to accept Gary Kramlich as a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee? If not, I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Did you get who that was?
No, it's manager.
It's
Taves.
Doug. It was me.
I thought it was you. Okay, any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
manager Taves,
Aye.
president Anderson.
Aye. Welcome to Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, moving on under new business, A is the Sunrise River Headwaters Project Development Scope of Work.
And president managers, Dr. Wilson, are you planning to lead this?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if the board wants to make a motion first and then we want some presentation first.
Presentation's fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let me share my screen here. Madam President and managers, I have a brief overview presentation of the tasks that we're proposing for this scope. It says host as disabled screen share, so maybe,
Oh, here.
okay. But we'll preface this by saying that this work is all under the accelerated implementation grant that we received this spring from Bowser, and to look at possibilities for water quality improvements in the Sunrise River headwaters. And this work will couple with the diagnostic monitoring that we are proposing for and completing for 2025. So this work will build off of what we get from that monitoring, as well as other activities, which I can now share my screen. So there's 4 tasks that we're proposing for this effort. The first is pretty typical data management and planning summary, in which we will summarize all of the data and past planning efforts from that the district has undertaken in this region, and provide a comprehensive picture of water quality within the Sunrise River headwaters. And then based on the monitoring that we're doing for 2025 in the area, we will also be delineating those sub-watersheds to those locations, and then providing a map of the loading per sub-watershed within the region, similar to past reports like in Forest Lake. We will also have a smaller task to look at the current H&H model to determine if there needs to be any updates based on those newly delineated sub-watersheds. And so this task will deliver a database of past projects and data collected within the region, updated sub-watershed shape files, sediment and phosphorus loading summary map, and then we'll provide check-in meetings with staff and the board as we progress through that. This is just a reminder of those locations along the Sunrise and in the area. So we're going to be looking at the Highway 8 corridor, and then multiple locations and several locations throughout that Sunrise corridor, as well as inlets and outlets of Shallow Pond, and then also the channel between School and Little Comfort. Task 2 is the additional supplemental field work. So something to point out with the AIG grants is that we are not allowed to, there are no activities allowed for kind of that routine water quality monitoring. So that's why we have to do the diagnostic monitoring under a different funding agent, but we can do feasibility field work as part of that. And so that's what this task encompasses. So adding missing information about culverts, ditches, providing higher resolution topography to inform the model for our project feasibility, looking at additional investigation of that school channel. There's been past studies that have looked in this area. We're still seeing really high loads coming in and such a small area that it's a mystery that we can definitely solve with some more targeted monitoring. Past reports from Interfluve did not point to any of that sediment loading coming from incision of the channel or sediment erosion along the bank stabilization, but we do believe and have observed that there's fine particles that have accumulated within that channel. And so we're trying to understand what the composition and deposition of that is for possible clean out opportunities. And then we're also proposing some sediment cores collected within the area wetlands that we will identify depending on the loading analysis that we get from the 2025 monitoring. So that's a similar, we've done that sort of analysis before with past wetlands like the Moody Wetland Restoration Projects. That tells us if there are high accumulations of phosphorus that can be released kind of during these high flow and can lead to possibilities of wetland restorations. And then the third task is about project identification and development. So we'll develop project concepts, identify them for possible water quality improvements. And then vet those through our H&H modeling to make sure that they're not going to cause issues with area hydrology, namely water changes for upstream or downstream water bodies or adjacent properties. So the H&H model will be updated to include those proposed projects and then run and compared to the existing H&H model to determine if there's any detrimental effects of those projects, and then ending with cost benefit analyses. And then the final task is the report. Any questions?
I just have a couple,
Sure.
but first I'll ask the board, does the board have any questions of EOR? No? Okay, then I will ask mine. That stream system that you referred to as school to Little Comfort, that reach right there, but what about Birch? Birch to school?
That's a good question. We did not identify that in this round of diagnostic monitoring as possible source.
Yes, manager, excuse me, Administrator Kenny.
Madam President, managers, the driver on that was that, the fact that, you know, when we're from historical monitoring that we've done, we didn't see that, as much of an issue. We know we're one obvious sources and we're working on that, but what we're really looking at is the fact that the outlet at school has relatively good water quality overall, and it degrades, you know, significantly by the time it gets to Little Comfort. So that was why we were focused on that.
Okay, even in high rain events, there's no action between Birch and school,
And with phosphorus or sediment sample.
either one.
Well, again, I mean, part of it is that we know that there's a source coming in, but it's not from Birch Lake, we know it's.
Okay.
It's from July Avenue, so until we remedy that, any further diagnostic work would not produce a lot of value.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're not missing something. We know that in that area, we had that exotic fish farm. I think they're no longer there, correct? But they were operating for 15, 20 years and dumping their water. Wasn't always, you know, done internally or hauled away. So we know that's a problem. The other question I had about limiting and maybe I heard wrong, but limiting just the monitoring to sediment and phosphorus. When we did that first one years ago, in preparation for the 61 project, Highway 61 project, we looked at more things because we knew it was coming from the urban setting. And so we looked at, I think it was heavy metals and other other things too, but we had a broader scope. So are we going to be doing that as well?
For the 2025 diagnostic monitoring, we're doing total phosphorus, orthophosphate and TSS. The AIG grant is particularly about projects to reduce phosphorus impairments.
All right, well, once again, since we're in there, it may not be bad to consider doing at least one measurement so that we have some kind of idea what we're dealing with.
Is there any reason to believe there'd be heavy metals in there?
Well, it's coming from the urban area. We found that years ago when we first did that work on, the shallow
Well, it's
pond
not coming
area.
from the urban area, from the school trench, from the school lake on down, that's not urban. That's
No,
all-
not school. I'm talking about the work in the Sunrise River area.
Okay.
That's all part of this. So. Okay. Well, those are my concerns. So just keep them in mind and.
I just
see if
have
it's
one
gonna-
question. What is the water quality? How has the water quality dropped in the last 10 years for Comfort Lake?
The water quality has improved in the last 10 years for Comfort Lake. Actually, Emily posted a really nice progress report in the board packet. But it's been improving since.
I didn't have a copy of that in mine.
I don't think it was posted.
Oh, never mind. That will be coming.
I specifically asked a question to show the chart, so.
Sure,
If you have
I
it,
can-
that'd be nice to look
I
at
can
it.
definitely pull it up,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually. I have been drafting the monitoring report for the next board packet right now, so I can pull it up here and we can look at it. This might take a bit, but it has been improving since then. And I'll be able to show you in a second. This will be faster.
Thanks for answering all my questions, but not when it wasn't answered, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm asking it again. So-
Yeah, definitely. Let me just pull it here. Let's see this now. Can you see this? No? You can still see the Word document.
On Zoom, we see the diagnostic monitoring presentation slide.
Oh, you're still seeing the.
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, okay. We have a spray.
Okay,
Okay.
let me reshare. I'm sorry. Here we go. Were you able to
Combine
see? There. Yeah, so this is over the past 10 years. TP is on the top, then we have chlorophyll and Seki. And then just a reminder that the darker green is the state standard and the lighter green is below the state standard.
Right, so if you look at the phosphorus chart, it's gone from actually, you know, the first year we're looking at it, there was about, you know.
This is the 10-year,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it shows a nice downtrend, and in fact, now we're at 15, looks like, until this past year, and this past year, everybody has the same problem.
Correct.
Which is something we have to address, we've talked about that before.
Yep.
So it's showing a nice slope like a lot of the other lakes, so we're at 15, and I think it was, at one time it was impaired, which means it was above 40,
It was 60.
60,
When the
60,
district
so
was
it's come down
started.
from 60. And
Well,
the
there's-
target was
yeah.
30, the local target is 30, now we're at 15.
No, our target was not the state standard. Ours was always back to pre-development conditions or as close as we could get. That was our goal starting out. And we've done for the watershed, for all of our lakes.
30.
What?
30 micrograms.
30,
Yeah.
30 micrograms, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Here's the.
And so we're
longer
close to where
record.
it was.
Well, no, we're at 15,
Yeah,
which is way lower.
That's good.
So why do we have to do any work at all? Is a question. I'm just raising it.
There's
We're
more-
gonna do the work, but I'm just
There's
saying,
more than phosphorus. You're kind of stuck on phosphorus. There's more than
Right.
phosphorus. We have 10 times the sediment load of any of the other lakes. All of the other lakes are around 4,000. We're at 42,000, 44,000.
Also, one of the benefits of the AIG grant was also the benefit to the Sunrise itself
Mhm.
and its and its kind of consequences of improving the.
right. So I agree we should do it. I'm just saying, that this is the last one to be done, but you can see the benefit that's been achieved by all the previous work done before this. Right? So this is fine to go ahead and do this as much as we can, but I think, we need to consider the 80-20 rule is gonna move ahead. You know, we're not gonna spend $10,000 to get another pound out when we're at 15, for example. So, so that's, I guess, just point that out to the group. The other question I have is that we probably should make decisions that after each task,
I
which,
agree.
which we've done before. Okay, we're gonna do that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. This is going to be very adapted, like a very good example of
Just like we've
adaptive
done the other
management.
tests, yeah.
Exactly. As we learn more data, gather more data about this area, that will, and also landowner feedback, also feasibility of the projects themselves, yeah.
And I agree that we have not paid much attention to, and Mike and I had discussed this recently, to sediment. So I think the board would benefit a lot from getting a little training on why sediment is important. I think Mike mentioned to me that some of the publications show that for every ton of sediment, you pick up 1 pound of phosphorus. But phosphorus isn't an issue here anymore, right? So the
Right.
question is, and why is sediment a concern? Because I don't really understand that, and I think we should understand that in terms of moving ahead. And I know it's a big problem for your lake, Jackie, so I think, but we just need to understand that. So if there's any tutorial that can be given, it would be helpful. And I suspect it does impact the life of the lake, life cycle of the lake, right? Because lakes fill up eventually too. So that's the kind of thing we should show, that maybe this is filling up faster than, and it's gonna actually reduce the total life of the lake. And that's the kind of message we gotta get out to the public and all this kind of stuff. People don't even think about the life of the lake ending.
Mm.
That's not even their wildest dreams, but I mean, it happens all the time. So, I mean, lakes go from nice lakes to a cesspool.
Mhm. And there
And that's what
are,
we're trying to avoid, so.
go ahead.
Madam President, managers, one other component for this particular work is that, in that Sunrise system is shallow pond. And we know from past monitoring that that has been, a phosphorus sink, meaning that it is treating, the water is going down, the concentrations decrease, but at some point, off into some future, if you keep overloading it because of all the unnatural amount of ditching and other things delivering, that will become a source and then contribute both to the Sunrise and to Comfort Lake. So it's extending the life of that wetland complex, that shallow pond, which is a topic for later this evening as well. But, you know, so there's clearly multiple benefits with all of these pieces, and this is really, you're absolutely right. A lot of our prior work over the last decade or so has been focused almost exclusively on phosphorus, but now we're looking at these multiple benefits going forward. So it's still going to be very valuable work, even in as we look at H&H modeling, for example. And if we're trying to look at maybe a couple of different areas that we would want to consider for some Highway 61 or Bixby Park type of project for, you know, wetland restoration. Well, part of the decision factor can be which one is contributing more phosphorus currently, if all other things are potentially
Right,
equal.
right.
So, so there's those additional benefits from doing the work.
And I think I recall, we did have, when we got in this, when you first brought this up a couple of years ago, Manager Anderson, I think we did kind of take a look at, what Comfort Lake was happening, and it looked like it was bad, so I think we did some comparisons to the other lakes. So maybe just showing the board the comparisons between the other areas would be helpful.
Yes.
And I think this is the kind of thing, anything we can do to converse with the public about the fact that their lake, without doing these things, the life of their lake can be severely reduced. And I think that's an important message to go with having unnecessary data, like showing this lake is, dying at a faster rate than some of the other lakes because of the situation we have in this area. So,
The task one, first paragraph, shows the amount of phosphorus that's still identified to be resolved. 366 pounds per year for Comfort Lake and 193 pounds per year for Little Comfort.
resolve to get what?
To get to
To meet
this.
the district goals,
Yes,
To which one?
to meet the district goals, the district water quality goals.
which are higher than the state's standards. The same approach that we use for every other lake that
Right.
we've done work on. So if your question was phosphorus, how much do we have? This has been identified in numerous reports, so we've had that for several years now.
But you really don't need another 300, you're already at 15.
But we're
So-
trying to get to,
Because of the benefit, so I can understand that, but I mean, from a. I mean, that's what it would have been had we not had the reductions from all the other areas.
Right, but they're,
So how much phosphorus has been
It's-
removed to get it down as far as it's been? A lot.
well, do you have a speed dial for the individual lakes and the other report, Emily, by chance, if you could, do you happen to have that handy? But part of it is that the remaining amount is also just an aggregate of that. And so while we have a year that was last year particularly good, there are other years. If we're trying to average 30, that's how you still come up with that remaining 183 pounds,
There you go.
so. Thanks, Emily. Those would be part of a discussion next, this would be posted, we'll send it out. Emily, when we're done with it, we'll just send it out to the board in advance.
is this
That'd be
is
great.
something you're just
Yeah.
doing? This report?
The annual progress report,
Okay.
so. Emily and staff have been working on it here, we're hoping to get it posted just to let you know that it's there available. But it's about ready to be wrapped up and distributed.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments from board members? Can you pull the motion up on the screen, please?
So I'll move to authorize the administrator on advice of council to enter into an agreement with EOR in accordance with the 3/14/25 scope of work. And then in an amount not to exceed $99,654.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I don't know. Is there any discussion, further discussion?
Sorry.
All
I just
right,
get so excited to do my roll call.
roll call.
All right,
You're on.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you.
A sign of future leadership right there.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next item, water quality and storage grant application.
Madam President, managers, I think the memo is fairly self-explanatory. District staff, Emily and DOR have been collaborating on the development of this proposal. We just, because of the dollar amount per the governor's manual, require the board approval.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion on the screen?
I will move to authorize the district administrator to submit the application to the Water Quality and Storage Grant Program and execute the grant agreement if awarded.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, a roll call, please.
All right, Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Next item is the 2024 CAT and DIY monitoring report.
And President Managers, we have Blaine Andiker here to present that information. Of course, there's also the YouTube piece, but you know, maybe you can just do a quick summary. And then if there's any questions, proceed with those. Go ahead, Blaine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Madam President, managers. Victoria D'Amico and myself put together a pre-recorded presentation from that summarized the results from the 2024 DIY, do-it-yourself, and CAT Citizen Assisted Tributary Monitoring Programs. I hope you got a chance to take a look at that. We'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the report and presentation. But just to summarize things for other folks that might be tuning in or listening to the reporting later. 2024, we had above average precipitation for most of the summer. That allowed us to collect quite a few water quality samples. We had 481 in total. And this gave us insight into the watershed response to a wet hydraulic regime for the area. Our data indicated that we had elevated orthophosphate levels throughout the district, mostly associated with roadways and wetland habitats. We theorized that the numerous precipitation events in 2024 allowed for the transport or flushing of nutrients and sediments that had collected over the years or over the last 2 drier years on the landscape, in ditches, in wetlands, or in upland areas, leading to the elevated orthophosphate results that we saw in 2024. These findings verified the need or importance of enhanced street sweeping and point to the need for ditch maintenance or cleanouts, and also the protection of wetland habitats in kind of smaller wetland habitats in neighborhoods and whatnot. We had 2 kind of main findings from the monitoring effort this past year. We identified 1 potential project in the direct drainage to Comfort Lake. There's a small stormwater pond that predates the Wyoming sediment or MS4 rules. Our data indicated that we had cleaner water entering that pond than exiting the pond. So we'll be working with that landowner to try to develop a project to remove that source of nutrient. And then we are also able to collect enough samples this year to further vet the accuracy of the DIY technology that we're using. We use a hot colorimeter, and our data collection indicated or verified the results that we've had in the past, which is that the colorimeter that we're using is a useful tool for giving us a ballpark idea of nutrient concentration, but it is not as accurate as a commercial laboratory. So we'll be continuing to use that technology to kind of vet areas and then follow up with more monitoring and actually taking those samples to a lab to verify results and to make sure that we're seeing what we are seeing there with the DIY technology. And with that, Victoria and myself are here to answer any questions that you might have from the presentation or the report.
The pond that is contributing more phosphorus during rain event years, high rain event years, where is that exactly?
It's off of East Comfort. It's down a pretty steep embankment just along the lake there, and it drains into wetland fringe along Comfort Lake.
Okay.
It's site 6 on the maps that are in the report in the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
I have 1 question.
Go ahead, Manager Taves.
Blaine, on page 12, there's a map, and it shows a sampling point FL3-3. It looks like it's a little bit of hotspot. Do we have enough information at this point to have a recommendation of whether we need to do something in that area? That's just south of Cranberry Lake.
Yeah, I think I can go ahead and answer that question. I think more data would be really helpful. Last year, that site was not nearly as hot. So we'd like to do a bit more testing to make sure that it's a consistently a problematic site. Otherwise, it might just be because of something happening locally in the area that caused it to contribute that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Questions?
Just a couple questions. One, first of all, I think this, with having rain this year really proves or shows how effective this technique can be. I think so. It's very encouraging to me to see the results we're getting, and it shows potential areas. But how, you know, this basically tells you what the phosphorus level is, how hot it is basically. And so like some of these are over 2,000 milligrams per liter, right? So talking in terms of the same terms we use for our graphs would show whether we're impaired or not. And so how do we get the volume measurement? Can we get any volume measurements on these samplings to tell us whether the volume is great enough to justify that is going to have an impact on the lake? And if not, how do we get that later on? That's my first question.
That is a good question. We are not taking any discharge monitoring at any of these sites. We're getting some observational data such as, you know, depth of the flow, depth and width of the flow. And, you know, is it a trickle? Is it a good amount of flow coming down? But we're not able to get the discharge on all these sites, especially using volunteers for the CAT program here. So we are not able to calculate any sort of loading. This would be an example of where we'd do this monitoring, identify potential hotspots, and then follow that up with diagnostic that would look at discharge and be able to calculate loading. But
Okay,
right
so
now,
that would be a second step, and that would confirm that how hot it is, right? Because you have a formal diagnostic test. Plus, then you'd have the volume thing to put together and says to go or no go then. Okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. The other question I have is just a comment I made last week. It's easier if you use the same scale that people are used to 40 milligrams. Some people are used to 40 milligrams per liter. Although that metric scares a lot of people away, but if these would put in 1,000 times longer, like 2,000 milligrams instead of 2.5 micrograms. You can't compare 2.5 micrograms against 40 unless you're an engineer and actually make the calculation like Blake taught me how to do last meeting.
Sure.
So I think we should start doing that. And then taking that concept a step farther, we're going to start making presentations to the public about all these results that we've got. We cannot use these charts with the public. I'll just tell you that right now. You're going to have to convert Saki disk readings to feet. Otherwise, you're gonna lose everybody in the first 5 minutes. So it may not be the best engineering approach, but we got to talk with our people in terms they can understand. So let's start thinking about how we would convert these charts to, even if we have to take the standard, we have to take the standard deviations off. That's very confusing to people. Make it as almost oversimplify it to get our message across, even if it's not perfectly accurate. If you know what I'm saying, it's more important to get the message across than I think it is. And I have this feedback all the time from our board. You guys are way too technical. You know, people don't even pay attention to it because you're too technical. So that's why I'm just passing this on. So, and it's going to be very critical if we're going to be successful on it. I think you got to understand this management. So
Absolutely, and we're finally addressing this by hiring a professional firm to do our messaging, to do our communication. So we're already working on it.
Well, I'm not going to charge you anything to make the suggestion, so it's free information. Okay, we're all lined up the same way. The rules are changing. We have to make sure we can talk the same language as everybody else.
Heard it before. That's all.
And
Can I make a comment to that? Can I make a
Yes.
comment to that, please?
Go ahead.
I agree with simplifying it for the public, but I think we need to make sure that they also can see the underlying detail that goes with it. So it doesn't look like we're just dumbing down and doing approximations of things. We have real hard fact data behind this. If they want to press beyond just the simple point on the chart, they can get in and see the detail of how broad we've been sampling and testing. I think that back end is pretty important as well to have that available.
Absolutely, it's important. And it's important for us to interact with the agencies that have anything to do with water in Minnesota. There's 5 of them. And this university, anybody, honestly, any entity that that has anything to do with this wants this kind of data. We've never not wanted it. The point here, I think, is just in order for the public to understand it, we have to put it in common language that they
Mhm.
can understand. That's all. And we should have been doing that all along, but we're doing it now, and that's a good thing. And we will have those types of communication issues,
Right.
you know, solved, hopefully.
Yeah, when I first joined the watershed, one of the first little pamphlets I got, and I looked for it and I cannot find it, and I save a lot of stuff. But that's maybe why I can't find it. But anyway, it talked about the life cycle of a lake.
Yeah.
And that had a very strong impact on me, because even though I've been on Forest Lake and I mean, on White Bear and fished that all these years, and been on a lot, I never thought about a lake dying. But then as I got into this, I know like Bald Eagle came very close to dying, right? You're probably familiar with that one.
Yeah.
So it happens, and it happens all the time on the inner city lakes. So,
White Bear.
well, White Bear is pretty good right now.
Yes, but they came close to not being so good.
Oh.
They were sucking too much water.
Yeah, that was a bit a different issue, but yeah, that was a
Same thing.
threat to the lake, and that's the point I'm trying to make. People pay attention to threats and things that they're concerned about. And I think, so anytime we can bring up the idea that tie what we're doing to the life cycle of the lake and get them even thinking about that, now you've raised a red flag and they're gonna be more interested. Because their property values, everything depends on it, and nobody even thinks about it. And so I think it's very key that we start, and maybe our agency can find the other jazz that we need to get people interested in some of this stuff. I'll tell you, last night, we had 261 people at that meeting, you know, even the Lake Association giving free food, we never had that many. We had like 185 or something, and we're gonna have another meeting this year, so. To get people in, you either gotta give them free food and drinks, or you gotta touch a button that they're really concerned about, and then they turn out like ants for free food, you know, it's really amazing, so.
Okay.
That's our challenge, we gotta find out these, and this life cycle is something we should begin to talk about. I wish I could find that pamphlet and just hand them out. It's already done, I don't, maybe you can look it up and see if you could find one. I know I saw it somewhere, this was 20 years ago, or no, not 20 years ago, like 12
Yeah.
years ago.
It's easy to find when you Google it. I mean, everything.
I
pops
did
up
do
now.
that, I couldn't get
Really?
anything, yeah, but maybe you guys can do a better job.
I've seen them too. I've seen. the
I'm for
pamphlets.
using other people's information all the time,
Yeah.
because you can just get a permission and reproduce.
All right, well, let's get
Okay.
back to the topic. at
Yeah,
hand
sorry
here.
about that.
And would anyone like to make the motion as it appears on the screen? If not, I will move to approve the 2024 DIY and cat monitoring report as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
All right, Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye,
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you, Blaine. And team, next item is the insurance liability coverage waiver.
Yes, thank you. Madam President, managers annually, the district has to, proceed with having a vote, on this particular topic. And as in the past, recommendation from, council is that the member does not waive the monetary limits on the municipal tort liability.
so I'll make that motion, I move to elect. The member does not waive the monetary limits of the municipal tort liability established by the Minnesota statutes 466.04. Option provided on the LMCIT section 1 : liability coverage waiver form.
I'll second.
Thank you, Manager Lowe. No further discussion?
All right, Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye,
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is Forest Lake Area Chamber of Commerce discussion. And Mike and I had been talking about joining the chamber just to get more visibility. I think they meet monthly for the watershed district and the folks that obviously have businesses in the area. So we thought that would be a good deal, but I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Holtman now to tell you why it's not a good deal.
Madam Chair, managers, it may be a great deal, but unfortunately, we have written authority from the Attorney General's office that that cities, and by the same reasoning, it would apply to watershed districts, do not have authority to become members of chambers of commerce. It just comes down to the fact that watershed districts are creatures of statute. You don't have any inherent powers. You only have the powers that the statute lays out for you. And the Attorney General has looked at it actually twice and concluded that there is no power to be a member of a chamber of commerce. If it may be of interest to you that watershed districts have a specific authority in the statute to pay dues to a watershed organization and to be members, and that's of course Minnesota Watersheds. So that's a specific authority that you do have in statute, but not for being a member of a chamber of commerce.
All right, well, that was important for you to hear this as a board. We missed the step of checking with Chuck first. So anyway, a good idea. We're putting it to bed now, so we don't need to talk about it. Let's,
I have a question.
oh, yes,
I'd like to try to resurrect it by being another good lawyer on
okay,
the other side.
okay,
So what I propose we do is that I join as a personal member of the, representing myself at that, if I can. Or somebody that's got a business could do it, and then it doesn't, if they have an interest in learning more about the watershed, that person could make a presentation.
well, I think rather than you joining, I mean, you can if you want to.
I
but
said me, but anybody
Yeah.
that would be possible.
I don't know if you can, if you don't have a business to represent,
It's a good question.
because it is, well, I used to belong to the chamber.
You
I
can.
was even a Minnesota watershed.
Chris,
Can you?
go ahead. You know about that?
I believe you can.
Yeah, well, okay. You can have a self-business, but you have to be connected with business somehow, is what I recall, but rules can change over time, so that might be what they are now. But anyway, the thing that I think we should do is have, reach out to the chamber and ask to do presentations at one of them, or twice, maybe twice a year, do presentations on, the watershed and what we're doing.
That would be effective.
And I think that would be very effective. One thing the chamber does, which is nice, is that they do have members, or it can be citizens, you know, or entities outside of the chamber. They come in and do presentations, you know, at meetings typically, so you get to learn.
Informational.
Informational, yes. And so that's really, really helpful. And you get to know people too, so that's always a good thing. You know, they have
I
more
think
of a
that's great. That's
connection.
probably a better way of
Yeah.
handling it, so I agree.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do, is just reach out to them to make a presentation.
And they are very interested in conservation topics,
Mhm.
because last year, they give an award every year for the best conservation work
Yeah.
done in the past year. The Forest Lake Association won that award last year.
Oh, how nice.
So if we made a presentation and telling our story, what's happened over the last 20 years and the progress that's been made, I'm sure we could win that award.
Well, I think so. I had a similar thought too, that we would give a award to the business that has done a project, you know, for water quality purposes, and just evaluate the impact of that as a district and present that as well. We've had some really good partners in the business community, you know, doing things that are more expensive so that we can maintain clean water, leaving their site and going into the streams and river and lakes. So I think we have some good partners there, and that can be a way that we recognize them too.
Okay.
All right, so we'll proceed with that. Thank you, Chuck. And we'll ask you next time before we put it on the agenda. Thank you. Next item, a 2024 year in review, annual report, progress report, initial drafts.
Madam President, managers, staff's been working on this. Emily's been the lead, so I don't know, Emily, if you wanna go through these. Any particular questions?
Yeah, just very briefly, Madam President and managers. So just the timeline here on the screen, we always try to get these reports out a little bit early, just because it ends up being a lot of pages in the end, and we want to give you more time to review. So just posting these in this month's packet. We've got the one-page year in review up, and the annual report are posted on this board packet webpage. Planning to get the progress report up probably tomorrow. We're a little delayed in getting some of the data back from the lab, and just wanted to do some additional QA, QC with the group, with the team, with EOR, and just make sure we're all on the same page with the recommendations we're giving and everything like that. So you'll see that, and I can send an email just noting when that is available. And then preparing a presentation on the April 10th regular board meeting. And then looking to have the board approve those reports at the April 24th board meeting. And our deadline for providing the annual report to the state is April 30th.
Okay, any questions? All right, let's move on then.
Yeah, I think it looks good, Emily. It's nice, nice and clear, and the message comes across strongly, which is good. So thank you.
Next item, 6G, is Shallow Pond, and there is a memo for that discussion. Mike, do you want to do this, or do you want me to? Go ahead.
Well, just recently, staff had been at the quarterly meeting with the city of Wyoming. They had brought up the subject that this particular property owned by the Audubon Society, which they had taken possession as part of that development in Park Meadow. They were looking to see if either the city or the watershed district was interested in it. And so we just had some back and forth. City wants the board to provide feedback of interest, otherwise, but they haven't ruled out that they would want to potentially maintain control, but at the very least, put some requirements on the maintenance of the property. So it's not, we're not an action of, yes, we're going to do this, but rather they're gauging our interest, and we're going to go back to them, and if the board is interested, which I would highly support, that then we just go back and then proceed to probably at a future city council meeting to have a further discussion.
Yeah, they're meeting on April 1st in the evening for their regular meeting, and we'll be discussing this topic. And I was planning on going to this meeting on the 1st. I know that conflicts with some of the scheduling for Yanni, working that next step with Yanni. And I can talk to Emily about that afterwards, but there's other dates that are available. I think the next day is available too. But if it's the 1st, I'm gonna be at this meeting. This is an opportunity. I talked to Rob, the administrator, after this was brought to our attention at the special meeting and last meeting. And they really don't know whether they want, it's a good idea, but whether they want that burden or not. They had talked about doing sort of a walking path through there, probably wood, throughout, not damaging the natural vegetation at all, but so they've got some ideas, but they're not sure that they really want, again, that maintenance burden or that liability burden, whatever they're thinking. But I wanted to go to this meeting on the 1st just to find out. And so I will be there, and the process is detailed. I think I just got I think you probably did too, a note from Chuck this afternoon. And I think we'll just send that out to all the board members so that you can see what's involved in getting ready to do something like this. But Chuck, if you could just address that briefly for everyone, I think that would be helpful.
Certainly, Madam President, managers, I had just sent a note I wanted to remind the board that you have in the watershed management plan, you have a program for land acquisition. There are times when you acquire property or you acquire an easement specifically to do a project. And as you know, there's a formal process to do a capital project that involves feasibility study, and then you order the project, and that will involve some negotiation and acquiring of property that you need for the project. But a few years back now, you created a program within the watershed plan to encompass acquiring property where it's not for a specific project that's in front of you, but it's something that comes to your attention, you know, just like this, where somebody is interested in a donation or a bargain sale, or a tax forfeit property or whatever it may be. And you don't have any immediate plans, but it has features that suggest that it might be useful for you at some time in the near or later future. And so you have that program in your plan, and it spells out that when you're considering acquiring such property, you will you'll specifically consider a number of questions about how useful the property is likely to be, whether it appears there may be opportunities, what the, you know, whether the price is likely to pay off ultimately, whether you'll be able to dispose of the property if it turns out that these possibilities don't come to pass, and just these logical questions to consider. And it's come up previously, and typically what's done is that the district engineer has provided you a memorandum that considers the several questions, and then you just review it and discuss it. And that's a way that you, as a board, deliberate and decide whether it makes sense for the district to acquire the property. And if you do, then you would just proceed in the ordinary fashion to negotiate and as necessary with the owner and transact for the ownership. So I had just noted that if this is something that's now in play, you might just want to think about when you want to task Emmons and Olivier or task your own staff to review the matter and prepare something for you so you can review this as a potential acquisition.
Okay, thank you. One point that I just want to make is that we do have a ongoing relationship now with our green space and green belt, excuse me, the technical word is green belt and open space initiative. And that's for protecting the areas that are natural and understanding their value in keeping the waters clean, especially as the rain events get heavier and heavier every year. So I think we've got an avenue through that, but as we get closer to this, we can get into the weeds with this. But right now, I think what I would like to see is that we have not a formal motion, but maybe a consensus that if it is an option for us, that we at least want to explore it in the manner that Chuck just indicated. So there's a process, but I would like to know if the board's members that are present tonight are interested in pursuing opportunities like this. I'll start with you,
Okay, sure.
Manager Schmaltz.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty obvious that we already have a strong interest in this area from what I've heard, based upon the, you know, the work we've been doing around Comfort Lake.
Yeah.
It could certainly, it's right now, it's a kidney that's cleaning up the water before it goes down.
Right.
But it's kidney's starting to get full, and there's a chance that we may have to clean it out later on. So one of the questions I have, we should make the city aware of that. If they own that and it needs to be cleaned out, is it their responsibility to clean it out? Is that part of their MS4 program then? They would have to clean it out themselves and pay for it? Maybe that would encourage them not to take the property, which is what I'm afraid of. If they take it, then we've lost it.
Yeah.
So that would be one concern. The other thing is that does it have any value for flood control? It's a big area, but I don't know whether how much it can hold before it starts flooding the houses around it. So that's something else we might wanna look at, but certainly from a water quality aspect, I think
Mhm.
it fits in,
Yeah,
so.
okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Manager Taves, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I think it's a, I think it's a strategic location that we really should have, give it some good serious thought.
Yeah, and the Sunrise River flows into it and it's
Yep.
part of that system. Thank you. Manager Loth?
I support everything that Stephen, Manager Taves have said.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. I will take that in with me to the meeting on the 1st and
One last question on this. Who owns the other half of the pond? So if we have an interest in that, we should at least find out who owns it and what they're, how much in love they are with it.
yeah,
So that's something that we might want to look at, just as a background.
yeah, I was gonna do this under the manager area, but
Okay.
this is a perfect, no, this is a perfect time to bring it up. Some years ago, Mike and I were talking about this conservation program that's available in Minnesota. Let the land, is it the land grant program? I don't know what the title is, but you had met with the director of that program. And I think it's really important that we invite him to one of our meetings in the next several months. Don't postpone it until next year, but it's important to understand that process because people can put their land into a conservation status and they get some serious tax benefits. It's been a while since I've read that statute, but there's really serious benefits for the owners to do that. And then it's put into conservation forever. So that would be something that we would probably want to explore as well. That's for you, Mike. You got that? Okay, good. Okay, so if you can make a note of that and try to line up that person to come to one of our meetings, that'd be great. All right, let's move on.
Just for clarification, so that was, Lessard Sam's Heritage Fund,
No, I'm talking about the program for the state for homeowners to put land into a conservancy status.
like the,
Minnesota Land Grant Program is what I remember it called, maybe different.
Minnesota Land
Yeah.
Trust.
Thank you, Minnesota Land. Thank you,
oh,
Manager
okay,
Taves.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, all right.
that's the one. Okay, thank you. Next item is old business. A is flood resiliency community engagement, final report.
I'll move to accept the flood resiliency community engagement report from Zan Associates.
Okay? Is there a second?
Second, I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Any further comments? Discussion? All right, call the roll.
All right, Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmalk,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Next item, flood resiliency action plan scope of work.
Madam President, managers, so this is, as outlined in the memo that, staff and are put together, and it would be, what we would constitute the next phase, this particular work, phase 5. So, we want to, I don't know, if Emily or Ann, if you want to go over it all, or if the board wants to make a motion and then have a discussion.
We'll do that after.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, Madam President, managers. So yeah, like Mike said, this is kind of the next phase, the next task that before us, following the community engagement. So thank you for accepting the community engagement report. And so EOR, the scope of work, under the scope of work, we'll put together the action plan and we'll need to be submitting that to the Pollution Control Agency by June 30th. And so because this effort is partially funded by another grant that we have gotten recently. So that is what the scope of work will do.
You want to call out any highlights? Sure.
Oh, I'm trying to share.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem. As Emily and Mike had pointed out, this is the 5th phase of the flood resiliency. It's a action plan. These are the other phases outlined here and what has been completed to date, and then the future phases. So that includes that grant memo, and which will be talked about next, and then project grant seeking and implementation. Previous studies and modeling efforts have highlighted critical vulnerabilities and need for targeted action to mitigate flood risks. This current scope builds upon the GIS analysis and detailed modeling and the stakeholder engagement that's already been completed. This scope is designed to prioritize those vulnerable areas, define the practical actions, establish implementation strategy, and ultimately develop the comprehensive plan framework that can be used moving forward and for future grant applications. There are 4 tasks which have been kind of detailed in the scope. The first is detailed mapping and summarizing of priority areas. So that would include the map, an example like the map that I have here, looking at roadways, flooded structures, stream flow, and then summarize the priority areas that were identified in the GIS analysis in phase 1, and then the modeling results for phase 2 and 3 and feedback from the community. And then this will prioritize locations for effectiveness and cost benefit outcomes. And then this will be shared with the city of Forest Lake and Wyoming. The second phase is to further develop recommended actions. So providing categorizations for short, medium, and long term. These recommendations may include infrastructure projects, restoration projects, programs, BMPs, and outreach activities. And there's an example that had been provided last meeting by Zan Associates and also in the scope itself, just an example, but it will be further refined into something with timelines as well. And then preliminary model analysis for potential actions like adding storage, upgrading infrastructure, rule revisions, things like that. Potential barriers to implementation will also be identified so that we can see if there's any foreseeable issues that could arise for different actions. And then obviously potential mitigation strategies. 3 is to develop the implementation strategy and timeline. So provide the conceptual descriptions for each recommended action, a detailed implementation table, which outlines the action, timelines, and responsible stakeholders. Detailed map books that will highlight the floodplain extent, the priority project locations, and areas for storage improvements. And EOR will also work with staff to identify grants or other funding sources to achieve those actions. And then the 4th task is the final report, which we will closely collaborate with the cities and staff throughout the process and ongoing communication, creating the framework to document, as I said, those priority actions, strategies, and timelines. Also provide design and layout service documents for readability and accessibility, kind of like we talked about, how we can effectively communicate that. We'll have revisions and internal and external reviews with our partners. Finalize the framework, which will be ready for just wide distribution, and then meetings with our partners as well. Okay.
As part of this process, I know you've done an inventory of our natural features. You know, groves of trees, wetlands that need to be preserved as possible, conserved. That information can be used for the greenbelt and open space issue. We'll send you a copy of the statute so you can read that.
Yeah.
But it talks about providing a map of these areas that would be intentional to set aside and keep natural and not allow development. So again, because of the water, you know, we want to make sure the water doesn't get further damaged with, expansion.
Right.
So I think you've got all the materials that you need to do that.
Mhm.
And we'll get that statute to you so that you can start taking a look at it and putting it into a format structure so that we're not talking about all these individual things and forgetting that they're linked together under that umbrella. And it makes the presentation easier for the board to follow, but also for the public to follow as well, because it's an intentional action to protect the area as much as we can for conservation and its benefit for water. Most of what we're dealing with around here goes all the way up, into Chisago County is wetland.
Mhm.
Originally it was all wetlands, different kinds of wetland. So we need to just see what we can do to make sure that we don't have $1 million projects ahead of us. And that if we can just keep these corridor areas where the water is protected, then everybody gets what they want and, progress goes on and we still are able to keep our lakes and rivers clean. Okay, thank you.
One question, please.
Yes, Manager Chase.
Yeah, and do you, in the scientific community, have an understanding of, I always have to reference the concrete because the abstract kind of gets lost in some of this, but say, for example, shallow pond, if we were to use that to catch floodwaters and we added 6 inches of depth to that and slowly release that, would we also be drawing a lot of phosphorus out of that water, or would that continue to be a phosphorus sink as those waters are released?
That is a complicated question in that adding volume to a system can also change its residence time, which has big implications for its nutrient cycling. So we would have to kind of really understand what the nutrient cycling within shallow pond is a little bit better to evaluate that. Because you have, the depth of the lake and the volume of the water also determines its mixing regimes and how long residence time is how long a particle of water stays within the water body. And so that has big implications for how the nutrients are used within the ecosystem and also how quickly things are flushed downstream, how easily particles that are containing sediment can sink to the bottom and be stuck in that sink, as we call it. So that would require some modeling to kind of understand the implications of changing volumes of water bodies, especially that large.
Well, as it would happen, that was one of the reasons for the start of the district. And a shallow pond was holding water. And then in the rain events, of course, all of that phosphorus was coming down. And that's a big reason why we don't have that level of phosphorus loading on that particular input to Comfort, the one on the furthest north. And it's in the first diagnostic report on Comfort Lake from Blue Water Science. Steve McComas did it. And what we found after we dug around is that a culvert was put in place incorrectly. And that was the cause for this backflow of water for the last several years when that development that's right along the edge of shallow pond. And so when that was corrected, you didn't see that type of loading happening. So it's a perfect case study. So you can look at that to start with anyway, right? It's a good question, Manager Taves. Thank you.
Just following up on shallow pond, is shallow pond really designated as a pond or a wetland?
The DNR calls it a pond.
Well,
because-
if it's a pond, we can dig it out and store rainwater. If it's a wetland, we can't. So it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah,
So we can make it a lot more than 6 inches, Doug.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We can turn it into a swimming pool.
I'm gonna sign an executive order and call it a pond.
That's what we should be looking
That's
at.
what the DNR calls it. So. I don't know, their nomenclature doesn't make sense to
Yeah,
me.
I'm sure the permitting would be similar to other
Mhm.
work that we've done, but
Mhm.
there's,
Okay,
there's a lot more for consideration.
so what's at issue here, basically, the topic at hand is to move money from one budget line item to another. And so the recommended actions are on the board, or excuse me, on the screen. So would someone like to make that first motion?
Let me get the screen.
If
up.
not,
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll move to
Okay.
amend the 2025 budget to account for 3-013-B vulnerability assessment to $50,000 and to transfer $50,000 from account 5-120-C floodplain greenway implementation to account 3-013-B.
is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Any further discussion? All, roll call, please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you, and there's a second motion?
I'll move to authorize the administrator on advice of council to enter into an agreement with EOR in accordance with the March 19th, 2025 scope of work in an amount not to exceed $41,727.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I did have a couple questions I didn't get
Yes,
to, so.
yes, please.
Two simple ones. One is, when we say we're gonna meet with municipality staff, who have we been meeting with up to this time, Mike, for Forest Lake?
So there was, a meeting that was identified in the Zan Associates report. That included, was kind of open to staff from Wyoming and Forest Lake, and others agencies. But City of Forest Lake specifically asked to have a separate meeting, and we have that scheduled for April 10th.
So have you met with them before or not on this whole topic? And who
Yes.
have you met with? Are you meeting with any council members
No,
at this point? You're meeting with the Boynton and Mink then, basically.
largely, yes, maybe
Okay.
Abby, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
it's been involved.
So that was the first question. The second question is when we get down the road and we start presenting to the city councils and all that, and we start asking for who's gonna pay for the actually floodplain construction work. This is a whole new area for us, so I don't really understand how that's gonna work. So is it a 50-50? Is it 100% city? What's the deal here? So we know where we're getting into.
Well, I think one of the next things is gonna be talking about grants, and that's probably, there's definitely. Funding out there for that, and the
Okay.
city, there's. Between agencies, different funds, our trust fund, that's it there, which is the LCCMR. There's also just direct bonding requests that could be made to the legislature. And there's a variety of options and opportunities, I guess, if you will.
Okay. The third question is when we get all this stuff done. And we want to go to the city council, if they don't know what's going on in the past 9 months. We're gonna lose a lot of time, I'll guarantee you. So my suggestion is that when we have something that's pretty meaningful to the city council, that we maybe ask. Our representative from the Forest Lake to attend that meeting. So he's there, we can keep it, the city advised. I'm not even sure they know we're working on this. I didn't ask Blake Roberts about that, but
council.
I don't know that it's being passed up. So since he's our representative, I can talk to Leif Erickson. And do these meetings hold during working hours or when are they held? Usually during working hours, right?
Historically.
For the staff, you're talking about meeting it with the staff.
So
yeah.
like at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 10, okay.
I think when you're dealing with something this big, that you wanna have that staff to staff meeting, obviously, to work on it.
Right,
And it's not gonna cost them anything. I mean, this is how we did all the ag projects. Some personal projects, but mostly the ag projects, we're paying for everything through grants or the money collected from levies.
okay.
Our goal is the water, we're singularly focused on that.
So we're not looking
And
to
so-
get much from the city at all then?
I wouldn't,
Okay,
because it's going to.
is that the way it works with other cities? that you've worked with?
There's been varying levels of other cities. I mean, the city of Rochester was kind of more of the driver in past projects, that it was all
Okay.
driven by the city instead of the watershed, but there's other watersheds who are similarly leading the charge, so it is really just who's in the driver's seat.
Well, I mentioned before to Mike, and I think the board, is that, you know, I just found out a couple of weeks ago that all the maintenance buildings that Forest Lake owns are so old and damaged that they can't be repaired. They're gonna have to rebuild them at a cost of $8 million.
Yeah, well,
So,
that's what happens when you don't do your.
well, I'm just telling you,
diligence,
they got
I
all
know.
this road, so we're not gonna get a lot of money out of Forest Lake. probably.
I wouldn't expect
So
that.
That's why I asked the question.
Not something this big. I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect that. It's something that was like everything. You know, we're making up for the mistakes of the past. And then hopefully going forward, you know, the watershed is still here and maintaining things. So it doesn't get out of hand anymore. That's the goal.
Well, it sounds like the city shouldn't have any objection if we're gonna be covering it with grants or that, so maybe we won't get delayed then.
And that's the other thing, is that we know, you know, we know that grants are here now, but are they going to be around
Well, that's the other
in
issue.
another year or two? So we have to work as fast as we can and get as many grant dollars as we can and get as many projects done as we can. So,
Well, just keep that in mind, that when you get to a point where you're out of the, you know, you got some framework built up and you're not doing all this, you know, nitty gritty work with one another. Then we might wanna try to get Erickson involved, just so he knows what's going on. I'll give him a call and talk to him so he knows what's going on.
but I think that should be our process, and I thought it was, is that we interact with our LGUs on a routine basis. And so they're always aware, months ahead, of doing a presentation to the city councils of what, you know, what we're working on. And so we need to keep doing that, and something this big, as we're working in every community, we should be attending, and then I'm talking about you, your staff too, you know, important staff, and you have to be present for those so that you can speak from your civil engineering perspective and answer any questions that might come up. And the rest of the board, you know, members can be there as well, but you're critical in doing that. EOR, any engineering firm. Yeah, okay.
So that's all I had. So the other third point I wanna make is that I thought this was well laid out. It was very complicated and confusing like 2 months ago, and now the step forward is, even though it takes a number of times, it's pretty well laid out and well done. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay,
Roll call.
yeah, roll call.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, next is report of staff administrator.
And President, there's a general fund.
Oh, I'm
transfer.
sorry, yes. Steve, I forgot Steve. 7C is fiscal year 24 general fund transfer amount.
And Madam President, managers, at the December 19th regular board meeting, there was a motion as described in the memo. And then there's a link to the meeting, so there was reference to $500. And subsequently, there was an amount completed of 500,000 to bring the general fund into a positive balance. And so since that's been completed, then there just needs, the auditor has requested that there's clarification about that dollar amount, since the motion originally did not say 500,000, it was 500. Well, but
Okay,
yes, and I think what, as I remember listening to the meeting recording again, it was, you were just trying to bring it up to the amount of at least $500 over the minimum. But it got it to be 500,000, so that's, so anyway, the 500,000 has been made, and the request is simply to affirm that that dollar amount is the amount intended, which
Okay.
is suitable for, given the previous discussion from the board.
okay, so what do you want? Oh, I see, okay, we have it here. All right, Well, I will make the motion to authorize the treasurer working with staff and the accountant to make general fund transfers not to exceed $500,000.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask to clarify, is this then an authorization for a single transfer, ratifying a transfer that has already occurred? Or is it intended as an ongoing authorization?
To me, it's sort of like a new rule in writing, that everybody can see. I know the treasurer has authority, to balance funds, and that's what occurred at the end of 2024. And we're ending the year with a positive balance in our general fund for the first time in 3 or 4 years. So that's a good thing. It makes our accounting, our audit report more understandable. So if it's for that purpose, I didn't see it as that. When I read that, it is actually, to me, an authorization to the treasurer to do this as needed. Up to that amount.
Okay, my purpose is just so it's clear that that's the intent. Your policies already authorize the treasurer to make fund transfers. So in theory, this would act as a certain ceiling on that authority. Which that may or may not be important, but I just, again, I just want to be clear on the record what the board intends by this motion. Which you've
Well, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with this motion? Being an authority that's added to the treasurer's responsibility? So everybody's clear about it? That's how I see it.
Madam President, though, I
Yes.
think what Mr. Holtman is saying is that this has the potential to limit that authority to 500,000 versus having it being a one-time transfer of that same amount, which is, I think,
Well, I'm seeing it differently. I'm seeing that the treasurer now has written authority, it's from the board, it's clear. That the treasurer can make that transfer as needed, but not to exceed this $500,000. That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And if the treasurer needs to make more than that, then that comes to the board first and the board authorizes it.
Mr. Holtman, would that be a revision of the governance manual?
Does it require that? Well, it would be something at, I suppose at the next time, I believe you've talked about looking at the governance manual in general to review it. It would be something to note and to reflect when the governance manual is updated. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to note, the other question that I had about this was simply in the wording to make general fund transfers, which I understand to mean to make transfers into the general fund.
Correct.
Yes. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, or choice of words, Mr. Holtman.
Right now, it could be either one.
Oh, okay.
So you amended to make general transfers into the fund not to exceed $500,000.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So you want to amend that to that, what I just said, or?
Isn't it saying that?
No, it says make general fund transfers. I could take it out if I want,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sometimes that happens. Not in our situation. Well, if you've got a fund that's short, that you need to transfer money, you want to take it out of the general fund and put it into whatever fund we need to cover, whether it's a,
Okay. So you said it has to go both ways.
I think it has to.
That's not my decision.
Well, it is our
I
decision.
mean,
So.
Mr.
as a
Holtman
board-
has to agree with that.
I think he's just asking for clarification.
Do you want to clarify that, Chuck? Is that permissible legally?
Oh, Madam Chair, managers, yes, it is permissible, certainly. The context, again, for my question is that presently in your governance policies, the treasurer is authorized to make transfers between funds without limit. So the effect of this motion is to limit that authority with respect to transfers into or out of the general fund to $500,000, meaning treasurer would have to come to the board to approve those transfers. So you can certainly, it's certainly within your legal authority. I'm just seeking to be clear about exactly what the meaning is of this action.
Well, it was clear to me that these are fund responsibilities of the treasurer, limited to that amount, and anything beyond that would have to come to the board. So I'm comfortable with that. Anybody else have any questions or issues on the board?
Do we have a motion?
I made the motion.
Okay, so
Yep,
did I
and you
second?
seconded.
Okay, so we can vote then.
So that was a discussion. Everybody seems to be satisfied. So roll call, please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is the administrator's report.
Madam President, managers. If there's anything in particular that I wanted to highlight, and nothing new, just still trying to recover, catch up from my time away.
Our vacation's fun,
Yeah.
long ones too, yeah.
I think most of our lakes are close to being ice-free, and what I've heard from staff, so, and others. And maybe one other thing that, staff have worked on is on the meeting calendar, we've incorporated some information about the different, programs that would be updated or brought to the board for updates, so it's now scheduled into that calendar that's attached to the administrative report.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Moving on, MUR?
Madam President and managers, in addition to the work we already talked about today, we are working on the 2024 monitoring report, which will be included in the packet for next meeting. We were able to get the second alum treatment scheduled with the contractor, and we're working on the change order, but they gave us for the additional amount due to the changes in conditions based on the follow-up monitoring, and the grant will allow for that additional cost. And that is the second and last alum treatment scheduled for the first week of October, so we'll be hitting that nice hopefully algae-free time period, so that'll be, that's a
And
good
wind
time.
free.
Yeah, wind-free.
It was a little rough out there.
It was. And then finally, I will be presenting at the next Watershed Connections workshop on alum treatments coming up this Monday. And I will take into account all of the advice about very general terms, and a lot of my presentation is about lake science and limnology, so hopefully get that across.
Good.
Like,
So since you brought that up, I was gonna bring it up anyway, the manager's report, but have we done some mailings to the Fit Forest Lake Association? I don't think Adam's here, Adam's here. Does anybody know?
Adam's not here, no. But we have not done mailings on the Watershed Connections.
Well, they invite people out there, but usually it goes through the Lake Association too. That's the way
Oh.
that's been done.
I know he's sending an email this Friday, so I'll make sure he is in
Well,
there.
Chris, are you still online?
Yeah.
Have you sent anything out on the alum treatment to our members?
I have, and I've also posted on our Facebook page.
Do you have or you haven't?
I have. I did that
Oh,
in
you have,
coordination with,
okay.
with the lake, with the ice jacking.
Okay, great,
I
okay.
believe we have about 20 RSVPs.
Thank you for that, and that just goes to show we got 20 coming back so far, right? And less time after that ice jacking went out, we started having tons of them coming in, so it's the old crisis.
Yeah.
theory again. So thanks again, Chris.
No problem.
Okay, next, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, no problem.
Okay, next is Smith Partners.
Nothing to report, Madam Chair.
Really? Okay.
I
The
don't,
laws are changing.
is there?
I just-
is there-
Yeah, well, because Louis did the presentation on this at the Minnesota Watersheds meeting was it last week? I think Friday. In St. Cloud area, Waite Park. The board, the rules did change so that we are changing the schedule for when our resolutions are due. And so that will start, I don't think they're gonna do it this year. They might try. But the resolutions they want in by April 30th. And then that committee is going to be combined, the legislative and the resolutions committee will be combined going forward. And that will be a 20-person with members from the appointed members as well as the administrators. Make up a total of 20, and so they'll be doing that action all at once, which is a good thing. And that means doing the priority listing for the coming year for legislative or agency work advocacy. So that did pass. And Louis did a really nice presentation on the second hour of this meeting on the changes or clarifications to the open meeting law. And I did ask him if he could put that together or prepare the slideshow for it with his context. It was really interesting, and I think the board would enjoy seeing that as well. It would be something that you could refer to if it's on a video format. So there are some little details that are changing. So I'm sure I asked him to send a copy of that slide deck so that we could at least have that for now and make sure the board understands either those clarifications because it went to court or some changes that were made. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Chuck? You said no? Thank you. Report of treasurer. You're on, Steve.
Sure, we had income this month of 127,144.17, and about 45,000 of that was grant income, and 63,000 of that was loans. Almost over 2/3 of it was those three items. So expenses for the month were $82,241.73. So I guess I would like to have a motion to authorize the treasurer to pay those bills.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves.
All right. Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye.
I should also mention there's no transfer required this month, so we have enough carryover that will take us through the 16th.
I
So,
think she still recommended about 50,000.
well, not in the letter she did. That's why I was gonna raise a question on that.
Okay, I
Uh,
must have misunderstood, then that was my turn.
where's that letter? You're right, we actually have 370,000. But only 307,000 required. So we already got a cushion of 63,000. And then in her letter, she said we didn't have to make a transfer, but I now look at the bottom here, she's added another 50,000 to that. So what do you want to do?
Well, I'd say leave it. Yeah,
Leave it in.
Yeah, 50,000 isn't that,
I mean, leave it, put it in again.
do the transfer of 50,000.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
as.
So we will have a transfer of 50,000.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tori.
And I think that's,
That's all I have for
Yeah.
that.
you did the roll call already.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So
done.
we've already passed this, so that's good. All right, report of officers and managers. Manager Loth, I'll start with you.
I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Manager Taves.
Nothing here.
All right, Manager Smalls.
Just the fact that we had this ice jacking seminar that the district put on, and we had 261 people there. I mean, it was almost standing room only, so. And a lot of the comments that we heard were very favorable. I think the team did an excellent job. Certainly, Adam did a job. I mean, he went from setting up for 28 people at a meeting to setting up for 261. I mean, that's a gigantic leap forward, and
Mhm.
there were little cracks in the ice, but nobody fell through.
No.
So very well, and I think even though we had a little problem with the projector, people really liked the information they got. They felt it was very practical, and that was what we wanted to deliver, so.
Yeah.
So nice work, everybody, on that.
And I went as well, and as I was walking out, I had the people that sat with me were shaking their heads and writing notes about the natural shoreline and its positive impact to their shorelines and the protection that it provides if the lake does go through this process in the future, which it probably will. And that was really the important thing, is that every speaker talked about the importance of natural shorelines as well as emergent plants in that area of the water, a few feet out from the shoreline. So the message was reinforced by the DNR person. There was a contractor there. Steve spoke, and Aiden, Aiden did a really nice job. And Adam did a nice job putting it all together and even accommodating those extra people. But the folks that I was walking out with, they were around me, were all talking about how much they learned and how they're gonna check into this natural plant thing, and thought that made a lot of sense. So I think there was, I can't remember how many people signed up to talk to Adam, but it was a substantial amount.
Well, we had over 100 people to the mailing list.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
was another thing, which.
So
is
that's good.
so.
So it was very successful, and I hope that we can, have reports like this of going to each of the lakes and trying to get that kind of commitment. But it was very positive. Very positive. So well done, everybody. All right, the next, and I have nothing else to report today. Number 11, summary and approval of board direction. Mr. Holtman.
Madam Chair, managers, just a few items that I have. One is that President Anderson spoke about working with the Chamber of Commerce to present once or twice a year, potentially presenting an award. So perhaps I'm interpreting that as a staff direction to move that idea forward. And then President Anderson asked that someone from the Minnesota Land Trust come and speak to the managers about conservation easement donations. And then Manager Schmaltz asked that when talking with the city of Forest Lake about the district's initiatives to make sure there's active coordination with the city council representative and that they're communicating with their body about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any additions?
Yeah, I did mention, maybe not loud enough, but I did mention that we would like to, as we're talking to the public, that we need to change how we communicate with the public and become less technical wherever it's possible. So that maybe should just be shared with the rest of staff, so everybody's aligned on that whole thing, since everybody contributes to those meetings to a
Mhm.
large extent.
President Anderson,
Yes.
I just had a
Maxwell?
quick question. Did Adam and whoever was doing presentations, did you guys also promote the Facebook page and try to get some more people that follow them online, or was it just old school mailing list that was added to, I guess, by the participants from the
I
yesterday?
think they had email, email column. So it wasn't just address and phone number, it was email.
Okay.
And
Well,
yeah,
I think didn't we do a mailing to everybody on the lake?
I'm just talking about following on social media. I'll just tell Adam I suggest that an email sent out to the new members with a Facebook link so that they can follow the watershed on Facebook.
mhm.
That will help.
Yeah, I didn't see anything like that, but yeah, reach out to him and tell him that. I think that's a good idea. Working with the lake associations to get that info. I don't
Well,
think
right
that'll
now,
be a
we're working
problem.
where everything goes out to 550 members,
Mhm.
but it's gotta be worked through Chris.
Yeah.
And make, put in a format where they don't have to spend a lot of time rewriting.
Yeah.
And I think we got that down pretty well now, and then you set it out to Facebook and the social media besides that, right, Chris? I think besides going to our members through the.
Well, hold on just a minute. Emily, can you pop that back up again?
Mike, you're gonna have to pull up the chat.
Okay,
I just wanted to note, Adam said that we got 100 or so listserv
Yeah.
email signups for last night's event. So not sure about Facebook, but like our newsletter, our email newsletter.
but I think that's a good thing to include in maybe the next newsletter that goes out is all of these different ways to interact with the watershed. I think that's what Chris is getting to, Manager Load, is that we've got other avenues that people can connect with us. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like the way that I approach Facebook and email is that, everything that happens on one, you do in the other. And so if you got someone's email, you want to try to get them to follow that entity on Facebook so that when they're mindlessly scrolling through their feed, that they'll see, the workshops and things that we're putting efforts into instead of,
Yeah.
the following of the watershed district is quite light, to be honest. So,
Mhm.
I think trying to convert the email database into social media following is a good strategy, but
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just checked really quickly and we're up 13 followers in the last 28 days on Facebook.
that's not good if we had 200 and some people at the seminar yesterday, but maybe we can get,
Yeah, it's pretty good if we only had 39 though.
Oh. Well, I don't know. It depends on the age too. One comment, the
true, too.
woman next. One comment the woman sitting next to me made, and she's brand new to Forest Lake. Just bought it. Sounds like an old cabin or an old house and refurbed it, so they're just moving in. She made the comment that, wow, there aren't any young people here. So I think it is that age factor.
you'd be surprised what the demographics of Facebook are now these days.
Yeah,
As far as trending on the higher end of the age. I don't want to say anything, get myself in trouble, but
Yeah, that's because their grandkids signed them up.
right.
we have 520 followers on the watershed page, so 13 new ones in the last 30 days is, I think we should try to shoot for getting to 1,000 and set a target for that and try to, make that a goal or something. But anyways,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And to make his point even more important, I think I mentioned this before, but it wasn't until Chris and his wife got involved in getting us into the social media business
Mhm.
that our membership went from 300 to 500. Of course, we had a sign program, a yard sign program at the same time, but there's no
Yeah.
doubt that reaching
Yeah.
that through that medium really gave us a whole
It's-
incremental increase.
It's
So
important.
that's a
Hopefully,
very important contribution they made.
hopefully our new communication experts will be able to do that for
Yeah.
us, okay? Thank you, good suggestion. Moving on, Bone Lake South Wetland Property Appraisal. Now, we can go into closed session. What would you recommend, Chuck? that we go into closed session?
Will there be an open
Madam
session?
Chair, you can, well, I would look to Mr. Kinney to explain the status, where we are and what he would like from you, but presently the appraisal itself is not a public document. And so I would recommend you go into closed session to discuss the appraisal, and then one of the motions is basically to allow the appraisal to go to the property owner. At that point, you know, it would then become public. But until it's public, so long as it's not public, you should discuss it in closed session.
Okay. And do we have to discuss the actual appraisal at this time, or can we do that when Manager Baki is here?
Well, your authority to go into closed session is for the purpose of discussing an offer on the property. So discussing the appraisal is a part of your deciding how much you would want to offer for the property.
Okay. Well, let's just move on then. Let's get that done. And I think we'll go into closed session, and Chuck, would you stay with us so we do it right?
Emily will
Yes,
also stay on
sure.
tonight, and she will start the recording again once you're out of closed session.
Okay, so she'll be with us too?
Yep.
Okay. All right, that sounds good.
I'll remind you in advance, just because I don't want to irritate you, that the statute requires that we recite the PID numbers in the motion, and then after you've moved to go into closed session and you are on the closed session audio, you need to repeat those PID numbers.
Okay. Okay, I will make the motion to go into closed session. I move to convene in a closed session to discuss the appraisal of the Bone Lake South wetland property. PID numbers 08.032, 0.20, 0.13, 0.0001. Second is 08.032, 0.20, 0.14, 0001. Third, 08.032, 0.20, 0.31, 0.0001. Fourth, 08.032, 0.20, 0.41, 0.0001. And fifth is 08.032, 0.032, 0.20, 0.43, 0.0001.
Two more on the next page.
Oh, here we go. 0.08, 0.032, 0.20, 0.44, 0.0001. And seventh would be 17.17, 0.032, 0.20, 0.11, 0.001. Second,
I'll second that.
okay, thank you.
Roll call.
Yes,
Okay, Manager Lowe,
Sorry, aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
aye. Okay, we will move into closed session, be in open session.
So the recording should stop and then be restart again, so.
Emily's still with us, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Recording is stopped and it started again.
all right, thank you. We are now in open session again, and we will proceed with a, what do I do now?
A motion to release the appraisal.
Oh, that's right. I'm so tired. What a day. Anyway, I've been watching you sleep over there, so that's good.
Good dad.
Yes, okay, so, we need a motion to release the,
I move
appraisal.
that we release the appraisal to be discussed by the interested party.
yep, thank you.
I will second that.
Manager Taves seconds, roll call, Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Anderson, aye. All right,
Passes.
it passes. We're all done. Thank you. There's no.
All right, well, thank you,
business.
Blaine, for all the effort. I hope all this pays off for us. So thanks for the effort, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, I'm just gonna declare the meeting adjourned as there's no further business in front of the board. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Night.
Watch your Gophers.
Thanks,
lose.
Blaine. Thanks,
What's
John.
that?
The Gophers are playing.
Good night.
Oh, that's right.